Welcome to the IF Horus Productions, Florence, Arizona. Well, I grew up in Florence, Arizona, and no matter how far away I move away, I always kind of consider Florence, Arizona like my home away from home. Florence was founded on the southern boundary of the Gila River by Levi Ruggles, a veteran of the American Civil War. The town is 61 miles southeast of Phoenix in the Pinal County, Arizona, United States. Florence, which is the county seat of Pinal County, is one of the oldest towns in the county and is regarded as a National Historic District. With over 25 buildings listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Well, did you know that the Pinal County Courthouse was built on the old Catholic cemetery lot? On February 1, 1890, Ed Bouvet has been awarded the contract for the removal of the bodies from the old cemetery. Any persons having friends or relatives buried therein can have the removal by Mr. Bouvet on very reasonable terms. On February 22, 1890, it was noted that among the unknown bodies removed from the old cemetery, and there are many of them, Ed Bouvet has about completed the removal of the bodies from the old cemetery and is prepared to contract for the removal of such others from the Catholic cemetery as their friends and relatives may desire. By March 8, 1890, all the squatters upon the cemetery lots, their friends and relatives may desire. By March 8, 1890, all the squatters upon the cemetery lots have compromised their claim, and no obstacles now remain in the way of building the new Pinal County Courthouse. The courthouse was completed on February 2, 1891, and was open and consisted of some 30,000 square feet. Some of the Florence historical monuments are the pyramid-style tomb of Charles de Brille Poston, known as the Father of Arizona, and Tom Mick's monument at the site of the silent film star's death. The historic Florence Bridge was originally built in 1885 over the Gila River. It was rebuilt in 1909 and is the third oldest Arizona Territory bridge still in use in Arizona. The bridge was designed by J.B. Garand, Arizona's first territorial engineer. The Gila River served as part of the border between the United States and Mexico until the 1853, when the Gadsden Purchase extended American territory well south of the Gila River. The Florence Bridge, which is described by the United States Department of Interior as one of the most important river crossings in the state. It's eligible to be listed in the National Registry of Historic Places. Also, did you know a whole town was washed away by the Gila River, the Adamsville ghost town? Adamsville was a farming town founded in 1870 by Fred Adams. The town had stores, homes, post office, flour mill, and water tanks. In 1900, the Gila River overflowed and wiped out most of the town. Those who survived the flood moved to the town of Florence. The inscription on the marker reads as follows: In 1870, a flour mill and a few stores formed the hub of life in Adamsville, where shootings and knifings were commonplace, and life was one of the cheapest commodities. Most of the adobe houses have been washed away by the flooding of the Gila River. South of Florence also is the Adamsville Ghost Cemetery, the AOUW, or Ancient Order of United Workmen Cemetery. There you will find a historical marker telling about Adamsville. Just past the marker, turn north on Adamsville Road and follow it 2.8 miles. Just after the road curves to the right, and watch for a driveway turning off to the left. It's difficult to see the AOUW cemetery from the road. There is a deed recorded to the AOUW 31 May 1894, Book of Deeds, number 15. There were earlier burials before then dating back to 1877. No one knows how many unmarked graves there were. In 1992, there was a sign for the AOUW cemetery, but now only the posts remain. Adamsville had approximately 400 inhabitants. I remember classmates from school telling me a story about the 3 small graves inside the Iron Gate where witches burned at the stake. But now I think maybe that was just made up, because I can't find anything on the internet that even remotely says anything about 3 witches burned at the stake in the Adamsville Ghost Cemetery. Well, not exactly the OK Corral, but Florence also had a very famous fight that took place in 1888. The duel at the Tunnel Saloon took place in Florence between ex-sheriff Pete Gabriel and his ex-deputy Joe Fye. This became one of the most notorious gunfights in history in the town of Florence. Both Gabriel and Fye were shot. Gabriel recovered and lived another 10 years. However, Fye died from his wounds. The duel reportedly stemmed from jealousy over a woman. Florence was also home to a couple of female murderers, one that mailed her corpses to L.A. and another who was an axe murderer like Lizzie Borden. Winnie Ruth Judd, January 29, 1905 to October 23, 1998. Born Winnie Ruth McKennell, also known as Marion Lane, was a medical secretary in Phoenix, Arizona, who was accused of murdering her friends Annie Leroy and Hedvig Samuelson in October 1931. The murders were discovered when Judd transported the victims' bodies, one of which had been dismembered, from Phoenix to Los Angeles by train in trunks. Other luggage causing the press to name the case the Trunk Murders. Judd allegedly committed the murders to win over affections of Jack Halloran, a prominent Phoenix businessman. In 1933, Winnie Ruth Judd received a sanity hearing in the courthouse after a double murder conviction. She was represented by McFarland and was deemed insane, was not executed. Her trials and tribulations allegations became a footnote in Arizona political history. Then there was Eva Dugan. She was a convicted murderer whose execution by hanging at the state prison in Florence, Arizona resulted in her decapitation and influenced the state of Arizona to replace hanging with the lethal gas chamber as a method of execution. The colorful cabaret performer and prostitute traveled far and wide throughout her life and unfailingly charmed all comers, including 5 dead husbands and at least, at first, the rancher she'd been convicted of axe murdering. Brassy and upbeat, Dugan turned her final moments into a self-styled grand finale by belting out a popular ditty of the day. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm on my way. Clad in a white silk shroud of her own making, Dugan smiled as she marched up the 13 steps to the gallows. She gently chided the guards not to hold her arms so tight, whispering, "People will think I'm afraid." Want to learn more about Florence? I suggest you visit the Florence Museum on Main Street, Florence, Arizona. They have a lot of great stuff in there. It's a great museum. Highly recommend it if you want to learn a little more about Florence. Thanks for listening to another podcast on The Robert Stogner Show. See you again soon.